Let me change my...
Yeah, I can see myself.
Settings. I've just unplugged my one speaker. And I think I'm totally messed up now. Tell you what, I'm going to leave this Hangout and join again. Okay?
Okay.
Cool.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Gert. How you doing?
I'm good. Just setting everything up.
Hey, there we go.
Hey, Nick.
I can hear you now. How are you doing, Mike?
Good morning.
I did a similar thing as you did, Nick. Right before I just unplugged something, I had to restart Chrome before being able to.
There you go. I couldn't get on with Chrome when I tried it last. It was so I'm using old-fashioned Firefox. But there you go. It works for me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm using Chrome, so expect me to go away shortly.
Or to have 5 mics.
Yeah, well, that too.
So congratulations once again, Gert. You lived up to your reputation of releasing something on a Friday. I think that was.
Yeah, this was a Saturday.
It was a Saturday. Oh wow! That's why I didn't see it come up on in my little window then.
Yeah.
So, why I can't understand that.
It's just it's this thing of if we push it out until next. Well, basically we work on stuff for the whole week, right? And then if we push it out to next week, then we'll start checking everything over again. And before we know it, we spent another day or a day and a half just preparing the release instead of working on new stuff. So we kind of got in there. Yeah. So that it's over with, and then start next week with some
Cool.
something from scratch. And otherwise, it kind of bleeds over into the next week, and we seem to get less done. And
Cool.
Hey, Antonio.
Hey there.
So one of the reasons why we do push it out is that it's it doesn't install over a previous version. So if there is really something extremely wrong with it, which hasn't only once been the case, I think, then people can still use the previous version. So it's not really drama.
Yeah.
Well, right before I joined Eigenlabs, it actually, I think when the first stables started coming out, they did install over the old versions, and then there was this huge thing where they released on a Friday and nothing worked anymore, and so everyone had to work on a weekend.
That's not good.
Well, I think we're all passionate and
Cool.
working on a weekend anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
We'll have to show Tim how to use Illuminator to scroll, "Hi, I'm an Eigenharp," when he gets his
right. Yeah.
cheaper than buying a T-shirt.
Well, he still has a Pico. He still has his Alpha and back all that.
He can do it in Morse code. I'm sure that'll be fine.
That would be interesting. And having the audience has to decode it, and if you don't decode it, then you're being kicked out of the room. Can't stay for the rest of the concert if you weren't able to decode this Morse code message.
Okay, so we need to turn Morse code for "Hi, I'm an Eigenharp" into a song.
Go right ahead.
So I have a question on the lights since we're here, which is that I wasn't sure in the release notes of, I think it was 2 point whatever, the first 2 point something, but it might have been one of the later ones. There was talk about the tonic lights lighting up.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that is the case with one of the experimental strummer setting. Not that I've ever been able to get strummer to work, but I've just not really I don't understand electronic music stuff. But I've seen the lights light up there. It doesn't happen on the factory settings. Is that
That's
correct?
on purpose, because on the factory settings we try to keep it as close as possible as the factory settings of Eigenharp.
Oh, okay.
So, but there is... Didn't I write a script for this, or have people...
Yes, you did.
Yes.
Oh, did you? Okay.
There is a script in the factory script, I think, somewhere.
Oh, okay. Fine. I'll have a look at that.
Antonio, you've upgraded to stereo.
Oh, that's back.
Let me see if I can find it. Where is that? Oh god, my typing is horrible today. Scripts. Where is that? Lights. What is in there? Yeah, so in the factory scripts there is a section lights, and then, but actually there is nothing for the Pico.
Oh, okay. Right.
So, do you have Workbench or not?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I figure I ought to be able to play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star fairly smoothly before investing in work.
That's a good plan. Oh, that's Drachitsa. You're all black, but it's
yeah.
I
Hello.
just recognized your voice.
Hey.
Hello.
It's a fashion statement.
Sorry. Yeah, no video today.
Okay.
So we're just staring into the black nothingness of your mind.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I.
So yeah, no, I guess I could have a look at one of the. I mean, if I was interested, I guess I could.
Yes,
look
but
at one of the scripts and
it will
maybe
not
adapt
be
it.
because all the names have changed. Belcanto names in the new. I can do 2 factory setups. Can you post something about that on the forums, and I'll write a script for the Pico.
Yeah, sure. I'll do that. Thanks.
During the week.
It was just I wasn't just sure what's supposed to be going on. So.
It's basically just a connection that you have to make from each scalar, which is actually the agent that transforms the position of a key on an instrument to an actual frequency of a note. So, which is responsible for applying a specific scale over your instrument. That one has a light output that can be sent back to the instrument. So it just has to be connected up, actually.
Cool. Yeah, I'll have a look at that. I'm browsing through the documentation.
Yes, but without Workbench, you'll probably not be able to do that, because there is no real documentation for the names of the agents of Hangouts 2 factory setups.
Okay.
So I'll write a script if you just remind me on the forums.
Cool. Okay, great. Thanks. Yep.
Which reminds me, Gerd, I need to thank you for that script, because although it's possible to do in Workbench, it's a lot quicker to just run the script.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, for some things, scripts are still very useful. Just repetitive things, and I was cursing at John when I was building the factory setups for Alpha 2, 3, and Tau, because it was basically the same over and over again. But I was kind of morally forced, and I agreed with him. But he said you have to use Workbench to make sure that everything is being exercised in Workbench. But I was like spending days just clicking on the same things over and over and over again, dragging the same wires to the same places. It's like, oh God.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have wished that I could have used scripts for building those. So is Antonio has got problems connecting apparently.
Well, if he ever comes back, we'll have to ask him if he's using Chrome.
Yeah. Well, I'm using Chrome also, so I think it kind of depends on your system.
Yeah, but I'm using Chrome too. Actually, it works.
It does. It's just sort of flaky.
Okay.
At least.
The video is off because I put it off. I'm slightly sick and I have, So.
Okay, well, we wouldn't want to catch
no visual.
This is low resolution video, Drachitsa. I don't think we'll know this much.
I mean, I have to say I was in 2 minds about switching the video on because I haven't shaved today. But
Yeah, I have. Look.
Yeah, at least I don't have the shaving problem. But okay.
You're probably sitting there in your pajamas, right?
Something like this, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to force myself every morning to take a shower and get out of my pajamas because I'm working at home, and it's so easy to just start reading mail and then all of a sudden be in the afternoon. It's like, oh my god, I'm still sitting here in my PJs. So I do this now. When the kids get out of the house and the bathroom is free, I instantly run into the bathroom and.
Yeah, I do this too normally, but as I said, I'm slightly sick today.
Yeah.
So.
Wow, that's 3 black rectangles.
Yeah.
It's starting to look like some experimental piece of art or something like that.
Let's see if they change places. That would be interesting.
But yeah, if there are different kinds of blacks, maybe there's something unique about them. Okay. So, what have you guys been doing? I've been not joining the Hangouts for a couple of weeks. Just.
I've been continuing to practice scales and patterns and so forth, which is quite fun. And I'm sure this is not standard musical practice, but my ring finger both my ring fingers are extremely weak, because I can't play any instruments whatsoever. And so I've been strengthening them with a bulldog clip in my spare time, which I have no idea if it makes any difference whatsoever, but it certainly makes me think that I'm...
Well, there is this thing that guitar players started using.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is basically, so you've got your 4 fingers, and you've got different strengths. This is medium tension. And so basically you can train your muscles like that. So it does make sense to use something.
Okay, right. Good stuff, yeah. Cool.
I'm not doing it as much as I should. I can feel that my left hand is much less powerful than my right hand because I've been finger picking almost all my life and just playing fixed chords. It's strange how different muscles are trained differently. This hand is able to hold a chord like very long and very strongly. But if I have to play fast things with it, my ring finger kind of doesn't follow. It's like the first 2 fingers go, and then the third one, oh God. Okay, so I'm still training on that also.
And the other thing I found is that, particularly from my earlier days with the Pico, which I've only had it for about 4 months or so, but the sort of strange sort of chord positions where you sort of cover two buttons and one are less unnatural than they originally were, which is not to say I'm entirely comfortable with them at all, but it's not completely out of the ballpark now to be thinking about doing that kind of stuff. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, well,
I didn't think I'd get to that.
It's one of the difficult things for guitar players also. The barré is what they call it. Lying your fingers over the strings and play a chord like that. It's one of those things that actually everyone has trouble with. So I think it's normally you have too if you haven't played an instrument before.
I have this idealized theory of musical instruments that whilst playing with feeling and remembering the notes and so forth is something that is reasonable to learn about, you shouldn't actually have to deform yourself in order to play the instrument. So you shouldn't have to get calluses on your fingers, I feel, in order to play a musical instrument. You shouldn't have to have your lips blow out if you have to play a trumpet, for hours and hours and hours on end. My hope was that the Eigenharp would be the instrument that would move sort of furthest away from this. I have to change my body in order to play this instrument effectively, which is not quite there because you've got these funny chord patterns, but it's kind of closer to anything that I think I've seen before, and it's also partly why I you remember I have changed the button sequence that went 1, 2, 3, 4 in order to play chords much more easily, because I thought it just should be easy to play this thing. But that's my idealized theory of musical instruments, which I'm not sure holds water at all.
Yes.
Which reminds Which reminds me, some years ago I found out that I'm very long away from my university studies because the colors on my right finger, middle finger, where I hold my pen normally, is gone. I had the real colors on my right finger from holding the pen all the time, 4 years of writing stuff down in tempo, and now it's gone. It's not here anymore. It reminded me how long how long it's been since I had to do that.
And does that mean you've lost a skill there, or you've just lost?
Yeah, I lost the skill there. No,
right.
I lost the skill there because I find it nowadays when I listen to lectures on videos and I try to do what I did in my university time without problems, writing everything down, is harder. I have to make. I have to stop and. Get my fingers warmed up again and stuff like this.
Yes, it's a nice ideal, what you're talking about, but I'm a little bit, skeptical about that. I think that everything that has you trying to express in real time what your feelings are through some kind of physical motion. Mm-hmm. Requires, for me, the most important practice is to actually have your dexterity in your muscles in such a shape that it doesn't become a problem, doesn't become a barrier for your emotions to come out. And it's just like anyone that does sports or anything like that. You might have the intention to run 20 kilometers, but go ahead, right? If you haven't trained. This is just something that is physically impossible if you've never used those muscles. I can see this very. Actually, it's interesting because I saw this last night. I bought this 4x4 pad thing machine from Native Instruments, and I'm working through it with my 16-year-old who wants to create dubstep and stuff like that. So it's quite fun. But she was kind of going through the first lessons yesterday, and I was with her, and she wanted to do a very simple pattern, which doesn't require any specific skill. Just the fact of connecting the timing information in her brain with the movements of her fingers was totally impossible for her.
Yeah.
Even though she did 2 years of acoustic drums.
Wow.
So just the fingers, the finesse of doing it only with her fingers, it was not possible for her to play in tempo. So I do think that you just have to sit through these boring training sessions to kind of get the barriers away and have the dexterity connected to your mind.
I think absolutely not, but I think there's a difference between that, which I think is a reasonable, let's say, skill to attain, which is having your mind and your body in sync. Mm-hmm. Let's say difference between that and forcing your body, your fingers to stretch into positions and do things which really they weren't naturally designed to do in the first place. Now that's the right. Distinction.
Yes.
There. Yeah, Nick, the instrument that I found is most like what you're describing is actually a WX5 or 7.
Right, okay, yeah.
I mean, by merit of holding it, your fingers go on very natural key positions, and right. At most you've got maybe a quarter-inch stretch to move your pinky down a key or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting, yeah.
Yeah, as somebody who trained quite, even if I'm not talented, trained quite a lot of ballet in her life, I have to say ballet dancers see this different. Because their goal in life is to get their body to do what their body is not designed to do. Like standing on a, 2 on 1 centimeter patch, your whole body weight on this small patch, and your body is not designed to do that. So there are different opinions on that. Mm-hmm.
I think that there is design and design. There's a kind of we've been through various phases of evolution. We've not designed to stand up, walking stand up either, from several millions of years ago. And somehow I think that there are things that actually I don't think we're designed to play a musical instrument. If you look at it like that. That's just my opinion. It's, people that make instruments with their bodies probably are much closer to that. You're just slapping on their skin and making sounds with their own body is probably the closest connection you can get to that. I don't know. It's an interesting topic, actually.
Yeah.
There is this other instrument called, what is it called? Carlax? I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah.
It
works particularly strange.
It is an actual a nice idea.
How's it spelled?
I just pasted the link in the chat to the left.
Great.
So the idea is that you've got a wireless controller with kind of springs under your fingers, and it's got accelerometers built in, and it's basically more designed to make audio and sound with your whole body instead of just with your fingers. So it's kind of used by dancers and actual stage performers to translate their whole body movements into sounds and effects, which is quite an interesting idea. I haven't seen anything that kind of made me say wow, but it is an interesting idea.
Yeah. Just having a look at it now.
Sadly, all the demos that I saw of it, you're like, okay, I don't actually hear this connection between your movements and the sound. I can see that you're triggering stuff and that you're just doing global changes, but not much connection, which is a shame. So I suppose that they're struggling with the same kind of issues that the Eigenharp has, is how do you map the new kind of expression of an electronic instrument to the existing sound technology out there, which is not easy.
Yeah, so it's almost the cost of a alpha by the looks of things.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, it's just expensive to make things.
Well, absolutely.
They probably don't make much money on it.
I'm sure. No, it's funny. I mean, I was thinking about the cost of the Eigenharps, and compared to a cup of coffee, they're a lot of money. But I also look at the other things that are out there, which I can't remember any of them offhand, but you get little. Oh God, I can't remember some little mono synthesizer thing from Korg, I think it was, which was £100, £120, something like that. I'm thinking, yeah, that's just a little bit of plastic and a couple of chips in there, really. The Eigenharp is amazingly good value for the quality of stuff that goes in there. But it's not a casual purchase, of course.
We make very little money on the instruments, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even less money on the accessories. So some people, there was someone who kind of insisted on, he wanted to have software free because he bought other accessories. And actually, we're losing money almost on accessories. Yeah. So I'm not going to give you the software for free. It's like,
yeah.
Well, we can charge more for the accessories if you want.
When I tell people how much the alpha costs, non-musicians always look at me and are like, "Are you crazy buying something like this?" But now I have this guy I was in a Rosa with on an improv workshop, and I found out how much he paid for his bass saxophone, and the alpha is cheap. He had some special, he had some special stuff. I mean, he is pensioned. This is his new life thingy. So he had a little bit more money put into it than you strictly have to have put into it to have it nice, because it's now his new thing. But actually, I think even if you put everything away, what he didn't have to have, he would have had to pay as much as the alpha for his bass saxophone. So actually, if you talk to musicians, real musicians who have real classical instruments, who sometimes cost into millions of whatever, they don't look at you as funny as normal people who think everything should be under $100 or something.
They also understand the motivation.
Yeah, it's the everlasting discussion. People compare, some people compare new electronic instruments with established things like plastic keyboards that emulate a piano or cheap guitars, and it's impossible to compare that. It's like comparing a handmade guitar with one that you buy from the supermarket and saying, "Oh, why is yours more expensive? I can get it cheaper." Of course, you can get it cheaper.
Yeah, those are the guitars that have prevented millions of kids from continuing to play guitars.
Yes, yeah. So,
because they're horrible, right?
Yeah. So yes, I think. Well, I think that things like what Native Instruments does is kind of also a culprit for that, because they make hardware gear that's just good enough. You can be very musical with it, but it doesn't kind of do anything new, and it just supports enough expressivity and features to make people expressive in a certain way. But still, it's just like what the audio interfaces that they incorporate and the button design and stuff like that. It all just kind of works, but not really great. So it means that people kind of start measuring things by that level, because they are not good musicians yet. So whatever they try out, it will kind of feel the same, because they haven't developed any of those motor skills or expressiveness in terms of musicianship. And so they try out these different things, and they just can't figure out why one is more expensive than the other one. So,
and I think if Eigen Labs were to start a serious marketing campaign as opposed to the viral thing it's got going at the moment, then that would be one of the angles that I think you need to spell out there, which is mark a distinction between the kind of plastic toys which are very easy to buy and knock a tune out of, and the professional instrument.
I'm not sure that works. And I say that because they're different enough that they're not easy to explain. Gert, your ears should have been burning yesterday. We had some company who brought over a friend who, of course, went, "What's that?" So it had to get fired up. But
so you didn't have your T-shirt by that point.
Yeah, I didn't, and nor did I have Illuminator going, "Hi, I'm an Eigenharp," which I should put in the setup that just loads by default. But it's really, I mean, even if to take somebody who, even a musician, and actually say what it is not easy. So, and I think you have to be able to do that before you can mount a marketing campaign around the message.
We haven't found the message yet. It's the same thing. Try to explain a guitar to someone that has never seen one. It's very, very difficult. Someone that has never heard of a stringed instrument. You kind of have to explain everything that comes together to make sound, and as soon as you're like at the second thing, they just phase out and say, "Yeah, well, whatever. It makes sound, doesn't it? Must be like everything else I know." So,
well, that's the problem. There's just enough context to it. You look at it and you say, "Well, it's got rows and it's got keys, so I guess it's sort of like a piano." And of course, you're wrong. It's sort of like explaining a guitar to somebody who's... I mean, there must have been an initial stringed, fretted instrument, and most people's reaction at the time probably was, why does it have these little metal things on it? Don't they get in the way? How do I slide my finger down the neck?
You have first to get the idea you have to slide your fingers down the neck.
But the problem is, at some point, that was well established. And sort of, not everybody, but everybody who played an instrument sort of had the vague understanding of playing a fretless instrument. And then along come these fret things. Like, what the hell are those? Oh, Antonio's not talking, so he's typing. I guess he's not only in the dark, but in the quiet.
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about the iPad, I remember, when it first came out, was, I mean, obviously we kind of knew what it was, but I think certainly a huge proportion of people who wanted one did not know why they wanted one. Which, I mean, it was incredibly cool and fantastic. And that's why they wanted one. But to do what? Well, they weren't really sure.
Yes, but that's a general appliance thing. It's not like a musical instrument, which is...
Well, yeah, but how many decades did people buy personal computers, poke at them for a couple of weeks, and then stick them in a closet?
Yeah.
And my experience with the iPad has been really interesting. I mean, I guess I've run into at least 3 or 4 people who not only didn't want them, but just thought, that's a crock, it won't be useful, I won't like it. And now you can't separate them from them.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, I think in terms of the Eigenharp, we just need another 3 to 5 years, I think. It's there's still just basic things that need to be solved also in terms of software and
you need
ease of use, and it's too much of a mental effort still to make this leap from, even if you just got it, just what the hell do I do with it?
Yeah.
So it's I don't know how to solve it.
Well, it gets back to your comment about the various things from Native Instruments or Audio Cubes or Ableton. When it's out in the world being used and people see it, then they learn from that instead of building on their preconceptions.
Hey, Antonio.
He's moving.
Hey.
But I can see it for myself. I'm still, and how long have I was using the Eigenharp since the Pico came out and the Alpha a year after. I'm still working almost every day on trying to find sounds that I think behave right. It's there is this thing, and it's normal if you think about it, because in general there aren't that many sounds that I already like from other instruments. For me, the everlasting classics are piano and guitar. And there are very little other sounds that I actually like in terms of acoustic sounds, which is personal preference. Even with electric guitars, there's 99.9% of the electric guitars that I just hate in terms of sound and feel. But then, finding a sound that behaves and feels correctly on the Eigenharp, it's very, very difficult. And I do think that we need more of those, and more of those being shipped directly in the factory setup, so that people can get more out of it without having to go on this journey themselves. So it's
to state the exact same thing backwards, or the opposite, it's a really good idea that they ship with a simple piano sound that sort of comes up by default, which doesn't require you to have good muscle control over pitch bend, that kind of thing. Because I know when I first got my initial Pico, of course I thought, oh, well, I'm not playing that. I'll play this other sound. And I was all over the map, right? It's really easy to do squeaking and squawking with sounds that actually respond. On the other hand, it's really easy to do fairly good music with just the simple piano thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I'm still looking for something which I feel like I'm playing is a sort of reasonably natural or sensible Eigenharp piece. So there's a sort of one tune I've got, which is that sort of dumbed down Bach minuet thing, which I'm sort of quite like doing. But I haven't found anything that is that actually exploits the Eigenharp, even as in written down. There's plenty of pieces I've seen. I mean, Gert, you put a ton of original compositions online, but there's nothing where I think, okay, that's a reasonably simple piece for a beginner, which involves a little bit of layering, and makes me think, actually, I can, I'm starting to exploit the instrument here. At the moment, I'm doing that thing that you said, Mike, which is playing a little piano piece and not sounding absolutely awful.
So another way to get started that actually is fun is you could go and buy yourself a half a dozen backing tracks in whatever music you like and improvise to it. It's a good skill to learn, and it's relatively easy. All you have to really be able to do is identify the key that the piece is in.
That's that relatively easy bit sounds very challenging to me, but I'll check that out. Just identify the key that it's in. That was it.
If you have a Mac, there's a great piece of software, I think it's called Coda, that will take an MP3 and sort of display it.
Okay, cool.
And all the notes in it, and it's pretty. And in fact, if you just click on a spot in the thing, it'll even give you the chord that's playing at that time. So it's not that hard.
Yeah, cool.
And actually, if you're buying backing tracks, the thing will tell you what key it's in, because you buy them by that.
Sure, cool.
Or if you want to do it really cheap, just buy one of the better versions of Band in a Box, and then go to any of the places that allow you to download chords and lyrics.
Right.
Because that's all you have to do with Band in a Box. You just key in the chords.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes. It still has the same problem for me, which is finding a sound that just behaves right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I was
with right. I mean, you've got this. I've got this conception about. It's probably just wishful thinking, but I want a sound that is rhythmical, but that I can still play melodies with, but I can also play chords with, and that I can drive a rhythm with, but also create atmospheres with. I think this is a nice challenge because I can do that with a guitar. I can take my guitar and I can kind of play on any style of music and fill in what is needed. I can very softly brush the strings, move upwards a bit so that it changes the sound a little bit, and I can change the way that I attack it with my pick to get some more tension in it when I want to, and I can use palm mutes to add some rhythm to it and stuff like that. My challenge for the last 6 months now is trying to work on a sound that allows me to reach in all these areas also without changing sounds. Just trying to find a sound that allows me to do that from one single sound.
Yeah, there's lots of instruments, real like acoustic instruments that just don't do that. Like they're just melody only.
I know.
But for example, on my WX5, I found some great sounds that were just that you could really connect with. They really felt really good. And I was surprised not being able to transfer that to the Pico, but I never did.
I mean, it's very interesting. I wonder. I mean, I like guitar sound. I like piano sound, and it's amazing how many sounds I found came with the Camel Audio, Camel Alchemy thing. It came with the Eigenharp, and how many of them, which is basically almost all but one, that I think I can't imagine any scenario in which I would use this sound.
Even some of the Alchemy sounds are not that bad. There many of them are atmospheric. But
No, absolutely. I'm not saying they're bad sounds at all. They're probably, if I was a record producer, I'm sure I could put, 2 or 3 of them on any, record I knew what I was doing, could find a place for them. But I wonder with Gert's thing about, liking the piano and guitar and not finding anything similar, how much of it is that you've grown up in a culture with those sounds, and how much of it is there's been a ton of music already produced with those sounds, so you've got a feel for that. And I wonder also if you were forced to use a not terrible sound for a while, that you might not come to love it, you might at least come to appreciate it and learn to create a certain kind of music which fitted that sound, even if it wasn't necessarily the music you wanted to produce forever.
Well, what I was more talking about is not the sound by itself, which is, if it's beautiful or not, but the connection that you have from the instrument to the sound. Are you able, without switching to different sounds, are you able, with just using the instrument, to convey different aspects of a musical performance?
There are some. I was on this workshop in Arosa, so 1 week of doing improvisation on the Eigenharp, and more or less it had there was no merit in using traditional sound, so I used everything, including lasers. This got me to go to a workshop with other people who are mostly wind instrument, and this didn't go. They found that my instrument wouldn't fit into their group. So now the teacher made a new group, and I was last week, the week before last week was the first session we had, and in these sessions, I find some Omnisphere instruments which I use because I need to have something ready. I will try to use other things too, but there are some Omnisphere instruments where you can do a lot of this stuff you say, Gert. I'm not really good at it yet, but you can use from rhythmical to atmospheric, from melodic to abstract, with not changing the sound, just the sound stays the same. I have at the moment, is this me doing this funny sounds? Nobody else except me hearing it. Okay. There is my thing is that because I'm playing with other people and I can't shock them. I don't want to shock them too much. We are all beginners at this improvisation stuff. It's one instrument per set. So we start, and from the start to the end, I try to use one instrument only, one Omnisphere instrument. And the others are, at the moment, the bass saxophone, a piano, and a didgeridoo. So I have to find ways, especially the bass saxophone and the piano have ways to play rhythmically or melodic or, change between them. And I have to keep up. Because we see it with the didgeridoo. If you can do just one thing with the instrument, in the case of the didgeridoo, often just play the bass note, it's not going to be fun for the rest of the people. And there are some Omnisphere sounds, astonishingly the ones I didn't think in the beginning are useful. You can actually do that. They are totally different if you are playing really short notes, staccato stuff like percussion, slightly longer notes, then they start to be melodic and you can convey melody. Or if you put your hand up and just don't move, then they start to kick in this atmospheric stuff, which gives you a wide range of things you can do.
Right. So what I hear you explaining there, Dragica, is actually you use the power of Omnisphere, which is an amazing synth, because I use it quite a lot also. I found some of the sounds in Omnisphere very useful. Oh.
Sorry, that was the wonderful notification center. I apologize.
And so
apparently you hear it.
From what you seem to be explaining, you're actually leveraging the power of the synth as opposed to being so working with the attack, which is the short sounds you're talking about, working with the first decay and then with the sustain that evolves over time. Those are different stages that are typical to traditional synths, right? So, while with the Eigenharp, what I'm trying to do is to actually leverage things that the Eigenharp is only capable of doing.
But it's on the...
And that it doesn't sound totally wrong, that it feels right, that it sounds correct. Working with this per note polypressure well, just to translate it into MIDI. So independent volumes for each individual note, so that you can have, when for example, you work with atmospheric sounds, that it feels right and not overpowering when you play 5 notes at the same time, but then you can let certain notes swell. But at the same
time... and Alchemy is very good for that, too.
Sorry?
Alchemy is very good for that, too.
Yes.
Take one of their pads and stick it in so that you maybe switch between them using roll, yaw. And I mean, that's another very traditional thing to do. You use something with a sharp attack and then a pad that comes in later, and you put yourself some control over it.
Yes.
Just to say, Gert, you can't do it with anything else than the Eigenharp. Because it's not just leveraging what's there. It's playing what's there. It's not just... You can't... I have this mini keyboard which frustrates me without fail when I try to play something there or test sounds. Because it doesn't work. You can only do it with the Eigenharp. It only works with the Eigenharp, and it only works if you play it right. If you do it wrong, it doesn't go. It's not automatic. That's the difference. I have to play the Eigenharp, and I have to play it right. If I don't do it right, it doesn't work.
So do you tweak those sounds or not?
I also tweak those sounds, yes. But it's this there is a difference between me just pressing a key or me playing the thing, and you can some sounds, not everyone, and not per default, not in Omnisphere. Some are really good where you can play with the sound.
Yes, I agree. I'm using I think there are 10 sounds of Omnisphere that I use in various things, but I still don't find the same connection that I have with my guitar, my acoustic of my electric guitar. It still feels like I'm not driving. It still feels like it is driving me. While I'm working, for example, on a sound, for a couple of weeks with my Slim Fatty, while it doesn't sound that awesome, I feel like I'm driving. I feel that every nuance that I use translates in something that I can anticipate, that I expect, and I can use it for various different things. It's a different feeling. It's a really different feeling to me.
Yeah. I feel this connection. I have to say that not always, it's on a good day, on a good set, when everything comes together, I feel in charge of my sound and my instrument. Which is what basically you want. You feel in charge of your sound. The sound is what you are expressing yourself in your sound.
I think it's probably, there is this big mismatch, from my perspective, I think, is that synths have traditionally always been geared towards the sustain part of the sound. And there's a lot happening in the sustain part and a lot happening in the evolution of a sound during the sustain phase. While for guitars, this only comes with additional things. If you start using the EBO or the Mo guitar or using feedback on a guitar, using the sustain on a guitar is something that you typically have to do an effort for, while you're much more concentrated on having the direct connection of each individual action that you undertake. So maybe that's something that I'm missing, because a lot of the synth sounds have been designed for intricate and interesting sustained things.
Well, and the consumers of those sounds want that.
Yes.
I thoroughly believe that's why very few people tweak synth patches, because the patch is already designed to be interesting if all you can do is push a key down and hold it.
Yes.
Yeah. These are normally the Omnisphere sounds I have to throw out because they are not interesting enough in the beginning.
And if you want a differentiator for an Eigenharp, and this is a marketing message, which I didn't put in my book, I don't think. I got to revisit that and do a version 2 anyways, now that the software 2 is out stable. But is the fact that you actually can play that evolution, that it's not static.
Yes.
And that, I think, is almost unique for an instrument that plays both rhythm and lead.
Yes. Yep.
There's lots of lead instruments where you get to evolve the sound, but most rhythm instruments, you sort of start the sound and then it has a life of its own.
Yep. So it's interesting. I keep going back and forth because I don't want to buy another 3 Slim Fatties to get 4-note polyphony. So I'm getting back to the software synths now, seeing if I can do something there that kind of feels as good to me. Yeah. Anyway, I do think that the Eigenharp still needs something that immediately is recognizable and sets it apart. It's a bit what the continuum had since the beginning. It's the way you play on a continuum translates directly into what you hear, and there's little else that can do that. If you just play the lead and you kind of slide up to another note, and there's not much else before the iPad that could do that well. But on the Eigenharp, since it's fretted, by default people will play existing things that are either key-based or fret-based, and then you basically don't hear that difference. The difference is in the nuances that nothing has been set up for. Yeah,
you're talking about sonic differentiation.
Not only,
and I agree with you. I agree.
No,
but I think it also needs its place in stagecraft as well.
Yeah.
And it ought to allow some. I mean, like Tim said about whatever palette he was looking at. I haven't seen anybody do it, but one can imagine doing some interesting stagecraft with an Eigenharp.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. We need more people playing it live. And Antonio is doing the most amazing stuff with it, I think, in terms of live playing.
Well, and I think that's a really powerful thing that Antonio does.
Yes.
It shows a dimension of the instrument that is unique to it, mm-hmm. in terms of mobility and visibility and application in stagecraft that hasn't otherwise been explored. I mean, we've all heard a piece of music that's new to us. It's a new genre, a new style, has a different sound to it, and you go, wow, that's it, assuming it's good. You go, wow, that's really good. But what you're really saying is, oh, there's a person who's found a musical space that's new and turned it into something that I like. And that's hard to do. But I think that's what's needed.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I actually think there's a reason that crazy old James Bond YouTube gets so many plays, it's quite striking, both sonically and visually.
It is, yes.
And yes, of course, it got airtime for my guest yesterday. Oh, here, let me show you this. Two videos get airtime all the time. That one and you on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
so
fun
one. So when did your guests get to grips with what they had in front of them? Then how did that conversation go?
I actually didn't have that conversation. I simply turned it on, and I think I played Summertime. It just came up with a guitar, probably Orange Tree guitar, loaded on it, and that's just sort of what I played. And then I handed it to the guy, and that was fun. It's much easier just to hand it to a person than to talk about it.
Cool.
And I just put it in probably C major and said, fiddle, things will come out, and they do when you do that. Although I must admit, I usually put it in D major and hand it to somebody, because just about all of those old sort of Celtic type things are all in D. So there's a vast wealth of stuff that if you just start pushing keys, you sort of go, oh, I know that song.
Yes. So are you working on new production, Antonio, or touring with latest one?
Yeah, it's coming at the end of this month. Wrapping that idea of the Alps Castello. Let's see. I cannot squeeze nothing more than 10-15 minutes with the alpha because it's a dance show. So it's not a music or a show. But let's see. We were just storming a lot of ideas how to put that together and using what was outside and bringing it into a theater. So
Oh, right. Yeah, so it's going to be the outside show adapted for inside?
Yeah, bringing some memories and things that we constructed there, and how it evolves on stage. It's very different, and we are closing this idea of doing shows outside and bringing them inside. So next year I think we are going to just concentrate on doing stuff on stage. Sort of traditionally what we used to do. We'll see.
I'd like to see it once. It's a little bit far away.
Yeah.
Shame.
Well, surely you have a wall that they can scale nearer to you. You just have to find it.
Well, an inside wall that you can scale and that is still a nice theater and where it's visible from the audience, I don't think that's that trivial, actually. It's because it's very easy to hit the stage lighting, I think.
Yeah.
You just need a theater with a decent fly gallery, and off you go.
I suppose. Okay. Well, it's been nice seeing you guys again.
It's been good. Thank you very much.
Sure. Don't forget to post that on the forums so that I don't forget.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I will.
I'll get to that during the week.
Cool. Lovely.
Okay. Well, have a nice day or evening, afternoon, guys. Dragica, hope you get well soon.
Rest of the day.
Thanks.
See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks for taking the time. Cheers.